0. Left 5 seconds.
Lift-off normal.
Here we have a majestic lift-off of LBM-3 M4 rocket carrying India's prestigious Chandrayaan-3 spacecraft.
P2 tracking.
प्रज्वलन और सफलतापूर्ण उत्थापन LBM-3 M4 रॉकेट का। यह भीमकाय रॉकेट आसमान को चीरते हुए अपनी भयानक दहाड़ से चारों ओर कंपन उत्पन्न कर रहा है।
Congratulations, India. Chandrayaan-3 has started its journey towards moon.
हम लोगों ने तीसरे चरण को भी बहुत ही सफलतापूर्वक हासिल कर लिया है।
Back in 2019, when Chandrayaan-2's lander was unable to land, we as a country were upset about it. But that wasn't the end. The show was still not over, and the happy ending of the show actually happened in 2023.
लैंडर मॉड्यूल पूरी तरह से सेफली और सॉफ्टली चंद्रमा के सतह पे लैंड हो चुका है। ये हम लोगों के लिए बहुत ही गर्व की बात है। हिंदी में एक कहावत है कि चंदा मामा दूर के, लेकिन अब हम ये कह सकते हैं कि चंदा मामा अपने घर के।
मैं टीम चंद्रयान को, इसरो को और देश के सभी वैज्ञानिकों को जी जान से बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं, जिन्होंने इस पल के लिए वर्षों तक इतना परिश्रम किया है।
As the year comes to an end, let's take a look at ISRO's marvelous achievements and what also it's got planned for us in the year ahead in 2024. But let's begin from the very start, brushing up our knowledge first about space exploration and, of course, India's journey into space.
Space exploration is not even a century old. But man's moon mission has crossed 100. In the past 7 decades, there have been 62 successful missions to the moon. 41 missions failed, and only 8 were partially successful. The very first mission to the moon was a flyby carried out by the USA. Asia joined the race to the moon in 1990 with Japan's successful Hiten mission. The first successful Chinese moon mission happened a year before India's debut with Chandrayaan-1 on 22nd October 2008. India so far had conducted 2 missions and Chandrayaan-3 was the third attempt.
Lift-off normal.
Here we have a majestic lift-off of LBM-3 M4 rocket carrying India's prestigious Chandrayaan-3 spacecraft.
Modern space research started in India in 1920, but it would be decades essentially before the institutionalized probe into space-related activities could begin and would gain nationwide attention. So what was the very first milestone? In Indian space exploration, it was the establishment of the Indian National Committee for Space Research, INCOSPAR as we all know it, by then Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, along with renowned scientist Vikram Sarabhai in 1962.
By end of the 60s, INCOSPAR grew to become the Indian Space Research Organization, or the ISRO. Over the next 48 years, ISRO has improvised and developed technology by launching several indigenously created vehicles into space. From the modest start of launching Aryabhatta, the first Indian satellite using a Russian rocket in 1975, India has come a long way. The first Indo-Soviet manned space mission was launched in 1984. Rakesh Sharma and Ravish Malhotra went through rigorous training for almost 2 years in Moscow. Finally, Rakesh Sharma became the first Indian citizen to go into space.
ऊपर से भारत कैसा दिखता है आपको?
बगैर किसी झिझक के कह सकता हूँ कि सारे जहां से अच्छा.
Now, have you ever wondered why is the moon really the center of gravity for space exploration? Whether it's for us, whether it's for the West or for the East. Starting, of course, from NASA's Apollo 11 mission in 1968 to China's Lunar program to, of course, our very own Chandrayaan mission.
Moon is eulogized as the shining beauty in the dark night sky in common culture across the globe. And so are its scars visible from 150 million kilometers away. It has always been a source of inspiration, creativity and inquisition. The moon, Earth's natural satellite, Earth's closest neighbor in the universe. The moon makes our planet Earth more habitable by moderating its movement on its axis. As a result, the climate is rather stable. And of course, the moon's gravitational pull generates tides, which creates a pattern that has directed people for thousands of years. The race to the moon dominated the beginning of the space age in the heydays of the Cold War. And a few decades later, it's once again back, but with a twist. In this millennium, it also has a healthy dose of collaboration between countries. Major powers like the US, China, Japan and the EU have all been probing the moon, and so is India. This time the focus is on the south pole of the moon, where only India has landed so far.
जी हाँ, आप अपनी स्क्रीन पे देख सकते हैं कि हम
As the Chandrayaan 3 completes another important milestone, all of India is counting down to the soft landing of ISRO's Lunar probe.
It's the final countdown. In 6 days from now, India will be at the moon's south pole.
And finally, Chandrayaan 3 said namaste to the moon. It was a historic, beautiful, emotional moment that is one of the biggest highs of 2023. India became the first country to touch down successfully on the south pole of the moon, which largely remained unexplored. The fourth nation thereby to achieve a soft landing on the lunar surface, which is a huge, huge feat. It was and still is the biggest moment of pride for every Indian. I'm sure all of you remember what you were doing or how you witnessed that historic moment. Many aim for the moon's south pole, but only India could do it. Chandrayaan 3 paved the way for even bigger space exploration programs for ISRO. And after this achievement, India also launched Aditya L1. The focus now on the sun.
Aditya L1 is an ambitious mission. So far, NASA, Japanese Space Agency JAXA and EU Space Agency ESA have carried out solar missions, 9 in total. The Indian Space Agency joined the constellation to understand the solar system and its effects on planets, and especially Earth. In 7 decades of space explorations, solar missions are a relatively new phenomenon. It all started in this millennium. The Sun keeps the solar system together, from the biggest planet Jupiter to the smallest particles in its orbit. The 4.5 billion-year-old Sun is a hot glowing ball of hydrogen and helium. The Sun is a relatively young star in our galaxy. Study of the Sun helps understanding other stars in the Milky Way and galaxies beyond. The various thermal and magnetic phenomena on the Sun are of extreme nature. So the Sun provides a good natural lab to understand those phenomena. These otherwise cannot be directly studied in the lab. Aditya L1 is the first Indian attempt to study and understand Sun. Aditya means sun, and L1 is a point between Earth and Sun that offers an uninterrupted view of the closest star of our galaxy. Aditya L1 carries 7 payloads. 4 of them carry our remote sensing of the Sun, and 3 others will do in situ observations. To understand changes in Earth's ecosystems, study ice mass, vegetation biomass, sea level rise. This mission will help us understand the groundwater of Earth and different natural hazards like earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, and landslides. In total, 9 solar missions have happened so far by countries like the US and EU to different points of the Sun. Aditya L1 carries the promise to open up a new galaxy of knowledge for India.
Chandrayaan 2, Chandrayaan 3 and the Aditya L1 program and many more upcoming space exploration programs. India clearly is soaring to new heights. But the contribution of people who've made this possible, we simply can't ignore. From the inception of ISRO and bringing it at par with global competitors, with counterparts like NASA, we've come a long way. And it would not have been possible but for these people.
Vikram Sarabhai is a well-known name when it comes to Indian space missions. He was an Indian physicist and astronomer who initiated space research and helped develop nuclear power in India. Sarabhai established the Indian National Committee for Space Research in 1962, which was later renamed the Indian Space Research Organization or ISRO. He was also appointed as the chairman of the Atomic Energy Commission of India in 1966.
I think the passion was to actually be part of building a new India that took its part in the universality of countries, and that could say, we did it, we stood on our own feet, and we have the vision to be able to say, we won't take one step at a time like the tortoise, we will leapfrog into the future. And I think that was his passion. I think that was Homi's passion as well.
Till his last breath, he was busy developing India's space and nuclear power. On the day of his death, Vikram Sarabhai was to review the SLV design. He was in Thiruvananthapuram and was scheduled to go to Mumbai that night. He spoke to APJ Abdul Kalam on the telephone. Within an hour of the conversation on 30th December 1971, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai died at the age of 52 due to cardiac arrest. As a matter of respect to Vikram Sarabhai, the Indian Space Research Organization named both Chandrayaan 2 and 3's lander as Vikram. And finally, Vikram is flying the tricolour high as Sarabhai did all his life. Professor Satish Dhawan was a mathematician, an aerospace engineer and a pioneer for Indian space research. Former Indian President Abdul Kalam was mentored first by Dr. Sarabhai and then by Professor Satish Dhawan. His leadership consolidated the confidence of ISRO. India was poor and it was a daring ambition for the country to dream of space exploration. Professor Dhawan paved the way. Failure of a space mission or a satellite launch was common. India struggled as it had to develop its own techniques. Developed nations like the USA or USSR did not share the technology. So when a mission failed, Professor Dhawan took the blame, and when it succeeded, the credit went to the team. India honored this leader by naming the Satellite Launch Center at Sriharikota as Satish Dhawan Space Center. The successful Chandrayaan-3 was launched from here. Professor Udupi Ramachandra Rao is known as the Satellite Man of India. He pioneered the launch of India's very first satellite, Aryabhat, in 1975. He was also the first Indian inducted into the Satellite Hall of Fame in 2013 by the Society of Satellite Professionals International. He was the first to establish the continuous nature of the solar wind and its effect on geomagnetism using Mariner 2 observations. With him as the chairman, after illustrious Professor Satish Dhawan, ISRO soared to new heights and built its capabilities as the Economic Satellite Launch Center. G. Madhavan Nair is a leading technologist in the field of rocket systems and made significant contributions to the development of multi-stage satellite launch vehicles. As the ISRO chairman, not only did he lead his team to launch various PSLV, GSLV, INSATs, but also the successful launch of India's maiden lunar voyage, Chandrayaan-1. He is the rocket man of India. Dr. Sivan Kailasavadivu became the 9th chairman of ISRO in 2018. Within a year, Chandrayaan-2 was launched.
Actually, it is the beginning of a historical journey of India towards moon and to land at a place near South Pole to carry out scientific experiments to explore unexplored. In fact, after that, a serious technical snag we had, and we fixed that technical snag. Now, ISRO bounced back with flying colors.
The mission was expected to take 48 days in total to land its rover Pragyan on South Pole of the Moon, roughly on 14 September 2019. But then on 10th September, days before the final landing on Moon, ISRO announced that it had lost contact with lander Vikram. ISRO scientists were disappointed. It was an emotional moment. Chandrayaan-2 propulsion module still orbits Moon and keeps sending back valuable information. It recently spotted Vikram lander and Pragyan rover of Chandrayaan-3 at work. Aerospace engineer Sridhara Panikar Somanath has made history with the successful landing of Chandrayaan-3 on the south pole of the Moon. He is the man who led India to become the first country to land on the lunar south pole.
Department of Space and Chairman ISRO, Shri S. Somanath.
All of you know it is not an easy task at all. It's a work of last so many years. Maybe for Chandrayaan-3 it's a work of last 4 years, but for Chandrayaan-2 that was a work of many years back. And the learning that we got from Chandrayaan-2 of our unsuccessful attempt to soft land has really helped us in perfecting the methodology and also to have large number of experiments tests to prove the process of landing, and it has paid dividends today, and we had a very soft landing and it actually achieved most of the nominal conditions for the landing, including the velocity of touchdown. In fact, I didn't get it exactly. Possibly my team will be able to tell them.
Well, the success of Chandrayaan-3 was just the trailer, because 2024 promises to be a blockbuster year for us and for ISRO. From a joint mission with NASA to India's first manned mission, the one we've all been waiting for, Gaganyaan. It's going to be bigger, better, and no doubt, fingers crossed, a hugely triumphant year.
आप अपनी स्क्रीन पे देख सकते हैं
Around January of 2024, a low Earth orbit observatory is all set to be jointly developed by NASA and ISRO at an approximate cost of 12,300 crore rupees. It's called NISAR. It will map the entire globe in 12 days, provide spatially and temporally consistent data for understanding changes in Earth's ecosystems. Ice mass, vegetation biomass, sea level rise, groundwater, and natural hazards including earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanoes, and landslides. In the third quarter of 2024, SPADEX, or Space Docking Experiment, at an estimated cost of 124 crore rupees, is scheduled to be launched. It will be a twin spacecraft mission. Space Docking Experiment is being developed by ISRO to mature technologies related to orbital rendezvous, docking, formation, flying, and other proximity operations. This will create scope of applications in human spaceflight, in-space satellite servicing, and other proximity operations. The Mars Orbiter mission, Mangalyaan 2, is all set to be launched in 2024. It will reportedly include a hyperspectral camera, a high-resolution panchromatic camera, and a radar to understand early Martian crust, recent basalts, and boulder falls. And finally, by the end of 2024 to the beginning of 2025, ISRO will launch its first manned mission, Gaganyaan. Series of test flights have already started. Gaganyaan module will carry Indian astronauts into orbit for 3 days. The Indian Space Agency has shortlisted 4 candidates to go on this mission. They have already undergone initial training in Russia. Now they are undergoing future training at the newly opened astronaut training facility in Bengaluru.
If 2023 was the year of Chandrayaan 3, 2024 is going to be no different. ISRO is going to give all of us as Indians many, many reasons to celebrate. And I, for one, can't wait to see the launches and what ISRO has for us in store in 2024.